I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak My Peace podcast. Like we always do about this time, I hope this episode reaches you all in good health, good wealth, and that you are all taking care of yourself and your loved ones, because we know just how important that is today. Man, happy Juneteenth. I hope that you are all doing your part in commemorating this day, celebrating this day, however that means to you. I'm not going to go on a long spew because I feel like I've done my part the last couple of episodes just to ensure that I stress the importance of upholding our history, educating youth on our history, retelling our history as well. I was correct in saying that, and just the importance of those things. We know that this day commemorates the day that we quote unquote officially gained freedom as formerly enslaved people in this country. But like I said, however you choose to celebrate or commemorate, whether that means, you getting together with friends and family, having a cookout, whether that means you getting together with friends and family and learning more, educating more, teaching more, whether that means that you going and spending money financially exclusively with Black-owned businesses, whether that means you do what you're doing right now. If you listen to this podcast on the day of release, supporting Black creators, supporting, Black narratives, supporting Black storytellers, whatever the case may be, just ensure that you are commemorating this day in somehow, in some way, whatever that means to you, because as I previously stressed, we know that there are current actions going on in this country to rewrite our history to benefit one group. There are current actions going on in this country to reconstruct narratives in this country to benefit one group. And there are current actions currently going on in this country to erase our history to benefit one group. And so we have to continue to fight against that. So again, celebrate, commemorate this day. However you choose to do it, just make sure that you do it. And speaking of rewrites, one of the most humbling / humiliating thing about having a podcast is when you say something wrong, it's out in the air. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't say, I didn't say that. If you publish an episode and you release it to the world, it's out in the world. Yeah, you can go back and, delete it later on. But for the most part, that episode is out in the world, whether you choose to delete it or not. And while I wouldn't delete an episode, I would definitely rewrite one episode. One episode from last season, episode 134. If you all remember, the episode was the episode where I covered off on the season finale of Snowfall. I was just talking about just like my takeaways from seeing the finale of that great series. And a lot of the episode, the conversations that were happening around the episode and the finale was really conversations around just placing blame on people. Again, this was 2 years ago, so you all may not remember, but, and again, also, I should say not again. Spoiler alert. I'll call out all the spoiler alerts before I do them. Some of you may be listening to this podcast and may have never seen Snowfall and maybe thinking of binging it today to support, Black creators, wherever the case may be. And so I'm going to try my best not to spoil it for you all. I'm not going to tell a whole series, but Snowfall is very important to the point that I'm going to drive home in this episode later on. But where I was at, just the conversation surrounding that finale was literally about just placing blame on, why the main character, Frank Saint, ended up this way. Was it his fault? Was it his family's fault? Was it his friend's fault? Whatever the case may be. And that was a large part of the conversation that was happening around the world. And that conversation, the blame, was something that was very reflective in that episode 134 that I had recorded, because that was what was going on. And so you would hear a lot of the conversations that I was speaking about in the episode was literally me saying, like, if this person is to blame, whether that person is to blame, whether, this person is absolved of the blame, whatever the case may be. A large focus of the episode was really placing a microscope on who is to blame for why this person turned out this way. However, not too long ago, I had a conversation that really changed how I looked at not only the finale, but the last 2 seasons of Snowfall in its entirety. I was speaking with someone who I hadn't spoken with about the finale prior to this conversation, and the person had not listened to the podcast. So it was just like we were just reflecting on some great series. Great series in general. Snowfall came up, and she had asked me a question on, just how I felt about the finale, how I felt about the series in general. And a lot of the things that I spewed in this conversation was largely reflective on me spewing things that I had said in that episode. Not consciously, but I only know that I did that because I ended up going back and listening to the episode, which I'll get into a little bit. But a lot of the things that I said in that conversation was focused on the things that I said in the episode, was a lot of like, this person turned out this way, ended this way because this person was responsible, this person was responsible, this person wasn't responsible. And in that conversation, her approach was not on the blame. It was on actions. It was on us being introduced to this person in season 1, seeing that person evolve in seasons 2 and 3, seeing that person evolve in season 4, and then seeing a change in season 5 and 6. And her approach to it was not who was to blame. It was like, think about if you were in this position, how you will react to going through these things, how you would react to experiencing this thing, how you will react. And honestly, it was eye-opening conversation because, again, my whole thinking, because that was my thinking back then 2 years ago, and up until I had this conversation, my whole thinking was blame. The season ended this way. We saw the shot of this character who didn't look anything like the person we had been seeing for the previous 5 or 6 seasons, looked different. And so that was what my approach was. And her approach made me go back, not only re-listen to my podcast, it made me re-listen to my podcast and made me rewatch the last 2 seasons of Snowfall. And in my rewatch of the last 2 seasons and of my re-listen to my episode, one thing stuck out to me. It was the word monster. I had used the word monster when I was describing Franklin at one point in my episode. But you can't do people wrong and expect them to do right by you. Yes, Franklin helped set up a lot of those people and helped them make a lot of money, but that money came with strings. That money came with dealing with a monster. The monster was who he is. And so, and in season 6 of Snowfall, I had heard the word monster used from his fiance's mother describing him. And it was in that instance that I realized that, like, oh, I would definitely change my approach. And the reason why I say that is because art imitates life and life imitates art, vice versa. The reason why my approach would change is because the reason why I say art imitates life and life imitates art is because when you grow through certain things, your approach to things change based off of your experience. And so nothing not related to that conversation I was having with this woman, it was something that had happened around the same time. Now that I think back about it. It was a conversation that happened it didn't involve me. It was about me, but I wasn't directly involved. It was somebody saying something to someone that was close to me. And what this person had said to this person that was close to me is they used the word monster to describe me. And in that instance, while I was rewatching the last 2 seasons, while I was re-listening to my podcast, coming off the conversation I was having with this woman around the same time, I realized that, like, oh, I was wrong. Franklin is not a monster. Because I'm not a monster. If Franklin's a monster, I'm a monster. That's why I say, like, art imitates life. But it made me reflect on just a lot of things that he had done for people and a lot of things that he had been through. And that's how I came away with it. Like, oh, I will approach this different. Because if I had a second chance to re-record that episode, I would approach it by focusing on actions and reactions to things. I will focus on intentions and how they were met I will focus on resistance to intentions and how they were met. And I think that is very important. I know I was joking and saying that Franklin can be a monster because I'm not a monster, but I wholeheartedly believe that. The reason why I say that is because people can look at you a certain way and it may not mean something, but when certain people describe you a certain way and you've done a lot for them, you kind of reflect on like, well, how did you get to this conclusion? And that's where I was in hearing that. But I had know how that person got to that conclusion because I had did something intentionally to get that reaction from that person, which is what you will see a lot of Snowfall too. Is that like Franklin had come to terms with himself in those last 2 seasons because of the things that he had been through and what he had gone through, and he had to become a certain person because his approach previously was being met with resistance. I say all that to say that you are only as good as your last favor to someone. And if that says someone memory is not good, you ain't worth the damn. You could give the shirt off your back to people, something that I do very often with people I care about. You can pull stars out of the sky for people. You can drain an ocean just to ensure that they never go without water. But if their memory is terrible, you ain't worth the damn. Because who cares what you've done in the past? Let's focus on what's going on right now. I have a quarrel with you. I'm at odds with you because you did something and I didn't like it. And now because we are at odds, I feel this way about you. Let's not remember all these times to where you were so selfless and showing up for me. Let's focus on these things, the issue at hand right now. I'm going to drag it back to Snowfall. Spoiler alert again for the people who have not seen Snowfall. Fast forward maybe a minute or two so that, you are not getting this thing spoiled. But I have a few examples from Snowfall that I feel like I need to highlight. So in season 5, Franklin is beginning to plan his exit from the dope game. And in him planning his exit, he's investing into real estate. He's investing into, developments within the community and so on and so forth. And in doing so, he's like, okay, well, if I'm going to plan my exit, I got to bring more people along with me. So he's bringing these plans to his uncle and his aunt. He's bringing his plans to his best friend. And he's telling these people like, yo, I want to do this because this is what's going to help me later on down the road. And I feel like y'all should invest. Like I need extra money. And if y'all invest, this could set y'all up for centuries and generational wealth as well. On top of that, I have a baby coming. Like I have to find out how to get away from this lifestyle that I have benefited from for so long because this is not sustainable for a parent. Someone who wants to be a present and active parent in their child's life. And my fiance is expectant, so I have to plan my exit route. And I want y'all to come along with me. We don't have to continue to do this forever. That's one thing. Another thing, again, spoiler alert, this is still spoiler alerts. There was this instance to where he went to a drop and he met Teddy or Reed, wherever you want to call him. And Peaches wasn't there. If y'all remember season 5, Peaches started doing dope. And we don't know that he was doing dope, but he's like sick. He's visibly like sick in the first couple episodes. And there was one episode to where Peaches was so sick, Franklin had told him just to go home, go get rest. Whenever you are feeling better, come back. So he had to go to a drop the next day and Peaches wasn't there. And Reed asked him like, where's Peaches at? He tells him like he's sick. And Reed asked him like, you giving sick days to your employees? And Franklin said this quote, you got to look after your people, otherwise they'll sneak behind your back. Which is ironic because he was saying this to the man who eventually robs him of $73 million. And then the person he was speaking on is a person who ends up robbing him of the excess $5 million or $15 million, I think. I forget how much Peaches had. But Peaches ended up robbing him of that excess money he had left in his stash house. So I thought that was very ironic. And my last example was, you all remember when Louis and Jerome got married, the whole wedding got laced with LSD. So everybody was on a trip. Franklin was on a bad trip. He came down. Once he came down on his trip, he took an actual trip with his fiance to Catalina Island, got away to clear his mind. And upon returning, he tried to extend up olive branch to his auntie because, they had been at odds because she, wanted more. She wanted more power within the business. She didn't want to be his underling. She wanted to be his partner. And in that conversation that he had with his auntie, Franklin is telling her, like, I realized that, I have wronged you because all you ever wanted to do was be a partner, and I was trying to keep you beneath me. And I was wrong in doing so, and I can admit that I was wrong in doing so. And just essentially extending the olive branch, saying, like, going forward, we can be partners. And she told him in that conversation, it's too late. And what she meant by too late is because she had already gone behind his back to go directly to the plug, essentially betraying him. So you have all these instances of betrayal from family, betrayal from friends and security, betrayal from the person who, is your business associate. If we're calling Reed a business associate, wherever the case may be. You have all these things of betrayal, but people will only focus on when you finally start to react. Because even with all this, with the betrayal that he experienced from Louis, Franklin still turned the other cheek. It wasn't until his betrayal, him turning the other cheek, cost him that he reacted. Because he turned the other cheek, he allowed them to continue to move forward with their business partner, and then he got robbed by Reed. And with him getting robbed by Reed, he said, okay, well, now I'm going to rob your partner, which is my aunt and uncle. One of the reasons why I am so fond of therapy, so fond of meditation, and whatever forms of self-reflection that people can have is because of this. It's like, if you don't have awareness of yourself, people's opinions, narratives, stories about you, they'll reign supreme. Because you start to question who you are. You may have identity crisis. You may have, what is that damn term called? I forget what the damn term is called. But you may have identity crisis. You may just be going through certain things where you're trying to figure out like who you are. And people's opinions of you hold a lot of weight because you don't exactly know who you are and you're still trying to figure it out. Imposter syndrome is the term I was looking for. You may have imposter syndrome. You may be in a certain space and you may be doing very well, but you may feel like an imposter in that space that you're operating because you are not very self-aware. And so when people say certain things about you, those things hold value because it's like, well, damn, I kind of feel this way about myself, and they're hearkening to some of those insecurities that I feel. This must be true. People will not remember. People will easily forget things that you've done for them in the midst of a dispute. And if you are not aware of yourself, aware of your character, you may react a certain way that may not be warranted. Because they are already feeling a certain way because they're oblivious to all you've done for them. Like I said, you're only as good as your last favor to someone. And if their memory is terrible, you aren't good at all. So while you may have done X, Y, and Z for this person, in the moment of a dispute, that doesn't hold any value to them because you're saying no to them about this favor they may need this time. Or you may not be showing up for them in this time because you don't have the bandwidth. Maybe y'all both are going through something at the same time and they need someone they may need someone to be there for them and you just don't have the bandwidth to do it because you're also going through certain things. And because you are not able to do that in that instance, there's tension between the two of you. And so you are no longer good to them, which causes emotional reactions. When said person said that about me to somebody that was close to me, it was funny because the person that they said it to like knows me very well. Not knows me very well. They know me better than anybody, which is the irony in that statement. It's like you're telling somebody about me who knows me almost better than I know myself, but definitely know me better than you know me. But because we are at odds, or because you feel in a certain way, you are trying to convince them of this narrative about me, somebody who is very self-aware, somebody who is very confident in who they are, and somebody who knows all they've done for you. It's the same thing with Franklin Saint. We can remember Franklin Saint the crash out. And speaking about crash out, because crash out is like a very popular term now. I always see it on social media. The thing about crash outs is that like being a crash out is a luxury. Because a crash out don't have anything to lose. Like, think about it. You may be in a certain point in your life to where you've done well professionally, personally, wherever the case may be, and you value a lot of things. Crashing out as a reaction to disrespect doesn't even come to your mind, because the things that you hold value in just mean so much. However, crash outs, they don't have anything to lose. They don't value their position in life. They don't value family. They don't value free time. And so that's why I say it's a luxury. I know it's kind of like an oxymoron, but literally being a crash out is a luxury because you don't have anything to lose. People with things to lose, crashing out about anything doesn't even cross their mind, because it's like, okay, well, now I have to think about, if I do this, what's the reaction to that? Do I lose my freedom? Do I lose my family? Do I lose my job? Do I lose all the progress I made in my life? Like, is this worth it? And the majority of times it's not. So crashing out is a luxury. And in that point, Franklin Saint was a crash out because he lost everything. He was beefing with his family. He held value in just his family dynamic for the first 5.5 seasons of the series. He lost the only family he had. You know, he had his mom, but his aunt and his uncle was also his family. He lost them. His best friend was going to Africa. He also valued money. Like I said, he was up $73 million. He got robbed. His accounts got robbed clean of all that money. The excess money he had left over, he got robbed of all that. He literally had nothing. So yes, he then became a crash out because he had nothing to lose. It was a luxury. However, the seasons prior to that, we wouldn't have seen the actions that we seen in season 6 had he had all those things with him. Had he had a standing relationship with his family. Had he had a bank account with $73 million in an offshore account. Had he had the excess money in his stash house, he would have weighed out all those things before he made some of the actions that he made in season 6 had he had those things. Like, remember him as the guy who robbed his uncle and his aunt. Remember him as a guy who offed Teddy's father and all the other things that Franklin Saint did, but we won't remember all the things that he was doing prior to that. We won't remember Franklin Saint bettering the life of his family and friends. And granted, slinging dope is not the most noble thing to do or to be, but he bettered the lives of the people around him. And even in his exit, he tried to bring them people with him, and it was met with resistance. So we won't remember all those actions, but we remember his responses to that. And so in closing, all I want to say is that, like, don't let nobody knock you off your pivot. I feel like I said this before, but I want to reiterate it. Don't let anyone knock you off your pivot. And some of you may not be basketball fans, so let me break this down for you. So in basketball, we know that you can only move with the ball as you are dribbling it. The moment you pick up the basketball, you cannot move while holding possession of that basketball unless you are using your pivot foot. So obviously we all have 2 feet. 1 foot is used to navigate, and 1 foot is your pivot foot. That pivot foot is the foot that is anchored to the ground no matter what. If you move that pivot foot and you still have possession of that basketball once you return to the floor, it is called a travel. It is a violation. And so what I mean by pivot and not letting no one knock you off your pivot is don't let nobody move that foot. Stay grounded. Remember the things that you hold true to yourself. Remember the things that define you as a person. Remember the things that is guiding you in life. Don't let nobody knock you off that, because that is very important. You are only as good as your last favor. And if the person who you did favor for has a terrible memory, it ain't worth the damn. But as long as you have self-awareness, those narratives or those opinions don't really matter much. Like I said, I've been in positions, many positions. I've said it previously that I'm a person that's loyal to a fault. And what I mean by fault is that, like, if we're close, if I care about you, if I care for you, it's not much I wouldn't do to help you. Whether that's checking on you, whether that's helping you financially if I'm able to, whether that just means just being there for you. I will give somebody the shirt off my back if it's somebody that I care about or care for. However, the reason why I say to a fault is because in 2025, there's not many people who moves with those same intentions. We are in a very selfish day and age. Everyone is trying to get over on the next person for the betterment of themselves. And so when you move through life with those intentions of, well, I'm a selfless person, I'm going to give somebody a shirt off my back, pull the stars out of the skies for the next person, whatever the case may be, you're going to get burnt very often because there's not many people like you. And so how do you combat that? You really just don't. You just really just stay true to yourself. And again, you got to remain calm in all situations, because those things that you value can be taken away in an instance. For me, the main thing that I value is freedom. I'm claustrophobic. I will not survive in prison. I'm going to be quite frank with y'all, because I'm claustrophobic. I also value family. I value spending time with my family. I also value my professional progression. I also value being able to vacation whenever I want. I value being able to take trips out of the country. And so when I'm met with things that I feel like are disrespectful or things that warrant a response, I can't give it a response because I know where I can go when I'm angry. So if people feel a certain way about you based off of your actions and in time of tense moments, let them have that. But if you know that those things aren't true, just constantly remind yourself of who you are and be aware of who you are. How I got to this point to where I'm at now? Therapy. A lot of self-reflecting. A lot of reminders of my character. Because I haven't always been this way. As an adult, I am this way, but you can ask people who've known me for 20 plus years, and they would say that in my younger years, I was definitely a crash out. But that was a luxury I had as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, because what do I have to lose at that age? Nothing. What? I can't go outside? If I'm playing sports, I can't play this season? I'll play next season. That was a luxury I had as a young teenager. Don't have that luxury as an adult no more. It's too much that I value to crash out or respond to certain things. Don't let anyone knock you off your pivot. That's all I have for this week of the Speak on Peace podcast. I'm out.